that spark was initially from, something that I can consume as a listener to, wow, the power of this podcasting could really change the world.
You are listening to Amplify Your Success Podcast, episode 280. And today, let's go behind the scenes of 4 powerhouse women podcasters and hear what podcasting has done for their business. You ready for this? Let's get started. Welcome to the Amplify Your Success Podcast. Get ready to ramp up your revenue, amplify your impact, and make your mark in the world. This is the show for experts, thought leaders, and service professionals who want to shatter their limits and achieve that next level. You're going to find out from other experts and influencers how they made it. Now, let's get amplified. Hey there, inspired entrepreneurs and business leaders. It's your host, Melanie Benson, Authority Amplifier for expert-based brands. And today I have invited a few of my friends to come and chat with me about what their inspiration was to start their podcast and the surprising outcomes that they never anticipated, but has exponentially grown their business. I'll be sharing the stage with these amazing women in May at Podfest Expo, and I'm very excited for what we are co-creating together. I mean, these are some amazingly powerful women who are leveraging their podcast to make a bigger difference in the world and grow their business. So excited to share this conversation with you. So if you've been thinking about a podcast, or you have a podcast and it's not quite done what you'd hope for, or maybe you just like really awesome conversations with women who are up to some amazing things in the world, then tune in. And before you go, if you've been thinking about starting a podcast, but you've got the brakes on, you're in park, you haven't gotten into action, I want to remind you about my Authority Brand Podcast Toolkit. It is very inexpensive. It's only $47, and it will give you everything you need to brainstorm a profitable podcast that builds your authority and exponentially grows your revenue and your reach by helping you align with other really awesome influencers and, of course, attract your ideal clients. Now, if you head over to authoritybrandpodcast.com, you will get the toolkit. Okay, let's get into today's episode straight away. Welcome, amplifiers, to a very special episode of Amplify Your Success Podcast. Today, I am joined by 4 amazing female podcasters who I'm going to be sharing the stage with at Podfest in May. And first of all, I know several of these ladies already, been getting to know others, and I have just been personally very moved by their stories, by the impact that podcasting has had on their lives. As you know, I am a huge podcasting fan, both on both sides of the mic as a host, as well as being a guest on other people's podcasts. And I feel like sometimes when we hear like what's really been impactful for other people who use a strategy, it can be inspiring, it can be insightful, and be prepared to leave us some great tips today. So thank you, ladies, for joining me so much. I really appreciate your time and energy, and I'm super excited to all of us connect in real life, some of us for the very first time. So let's do a quick round of introductions. Just set the tone for everybody and catch up, and then they'll start to pick up on what your voice is and what your name is. But Jennifer, you are our fearless leader for the Women in Podcasting track at Podfest. Would you go first and introduce yourself and share what your podcast is?
My name is Jennifer Henczel, and I'm a podcaster, best-selling author, founder of Inspired Influencers, and a global network called Women in Podcasting VIP Club. And my mission is to lift women's voices globally. I'm known for my ability to build inspiring, supportive, and collaborative communities. And I love creating opportunities for women to connect and collaborate in meaningful ways.
Love it. And Jennifer is the spark behind us being at Podfest. So thank you for being such an amazing collaborator. I'm super grateful for all of the times you have brought me into the fold on something. So thank you. Michelle, let's hop over to you. Have you introduced yourself?
Sure. Well, thanks so much for having me here. My name is Michelle Abraham, the founder of Amplify You Podcasting Inc., where we help entrepreneurs wanting to grow their business. We help them use the power of podcasting to grow their business beyond their imagination and make a bigger impact in the world. And so we're really focused on those entrepreneurs who have a wish to make a big impact in the world, who are heart-centered and just see podcasting as a way to help them amplify their message. And as you can see, Melanie and I share the love for the world, the word amplify, right?
I know I was going to bring that up if you didn't, but when we first crossed paths, I'm like, oh, you're Amplify. I'm Amplify. That's awesome. We're supposed to be friends, I'm sure. So
Exactly.
love it. Thank you, Michelle. Tiphany, let's pop over to you.
Well, hello, everyone. I am Tiphany Kane, the Heck Yes Coach. And I, like Michelle, help people launch their podcasts. It's always exciting to meet another person that is out there elevating people's voices, helping them get their messages out into the world. And that is what I'm really passionate about. So I split my time between helping people get their podcasts launched and helping them to leverage their podcasts for success. And that's where my Heck Yes coaching comes in, is being open to the magic of opportunity and possibility. And that is us all coming together like this is one of those magical moments that just has me so energized and excited. So thank you for having me on today.
Yeah. Did you share what the name of your podcast is?
Well, I should.
Yes, because it's really hot.
So my podcast for podcasters is called Mastering the Podcaster Mindset. And my Heck Yes podcast is called Radical Audacity in Love and Life, all about living that audacious life.
Love it. Okay, Kimmy, longtime friend Kimmy. Thank you for being here. I'm so glad we're going to be doing this trek together. Why don't you introduce yourself as well?
So special. There's so many amplified women here. I love it. This is so exciting. So I'm Kimmie Seltzer, and I'm an authentic dating strategist, a confidence therapist, and an image expert. It is a mouthful to say that I just help people holistically find love inside and out. And, you know, the name of my podcast is The Charisma Quotient, which is the formula at which I teach people and raising their charisma so that they attract what they want. It's building confidence, making connections, and finding love. So whether it's dating or business, to me, it's all the same. It's how we show up. That is the first hit, that first impression stage that attracts love, clients, everybody. So I love that we're on a panel together and that we're going to provide this connection that will create magic.
I love it. Okay. So Kimmy, we're going to start this next question with you. I am always fascinated by the origin of something extraordinary. Like what was the spark, right? And so Kimmy, what was the spark for you? Like that original moment where you're like, I'm starting a podcast.
Yeah, I will try to condense the story because I have a longer version, but I will tease
okay,
you
we'll
with
share
this.
that one for the event.
Exactly. I will tease you with this, is that I kept going on other people's podcasts, and I do a lot of speaking. I do a lot of, just media stuff here and there. But I just loved podcasting when I would go on. And then people would come to me and they say, Kimmy, you should have your own podcast. And I would kept saying, yeah, I should. Right. And then, no, Kimmy, really, you should have a podcast. I'm like, yeah, I should, and how many times do we say I should until it becomes I am, or I will be doing? And I just remember an opportunity came to me where a media team reached out and said, we want to start your podcast. So it kind of took some external motivation to get me started. But I started there, and it's just like, my life completely changed from the moment that I found my voice. Even though I've been on stages and had all these things, there was something about the podcast that is so intimate, and, just meeting so many people. It's been really amazing for my business.
Thanks for sharing that. Michelle, what was the spark for you to start your podcast?
Oh my gosh. I have to take you back to 2012 when I became a new mom. And I had a really busy business. I had a co-working space, and I had a fitness studio and all sorts of things going on. So I was used to being hustling and being in business and being motivated, and being a new mom was like amazing. But man, my business brain just went to mush, and I didn't feel very motivated anymore. And I remember playing on the floor with my son one day, and I turned on the Apple TV, and I'm like, what's this purple app? And when I turned it on, I became so inspired and motivated as a listener, listening to a couple of shows in particular around marketing and entrepreneurship that I loved. And it's like, if this is the impact it has on me as a listener, oh my gosh, I can't imagine the impact I could help other people get their shows out there. So it really went from a listener that had a really huge mental health shift, feeling motivated, putting my earbuds in, taking my son for a walk, getting back into the business thing, to really finding this vehicle that no one had really, like, everyone I asked, like, what podcast do you listen to? Like, what are you talking about? And so I'm like, there's something to this podcasting thing. It's in my car, it's on my phone, it's in the Apple TV. I'm like, yeah, no one's really talking about it. So I really got inspired to help other people start using the power of podcasting. And so it took me a really, really long time to have my own show, for lots of fears, fear of failure, no one's going to listen, the perfectionism thing, imposter syndrome, all these things that I see all of our clients go through now. But I know now, looking back, I had to go through that to start my own show so that I can help other people do that today. So, that spark was initially from, something that I can consume as a listener, to, wow, the power of this podcasting could really change the world.
I'm really grateful that you brought up the mindset, the head trash that can often stall us out. Is going to be a huge part of one of the panels that Jennifer's facilitating. Are you on the mindset panel or the monetization?
I sure am. I am on the mindset one.
I know, it was such a tour. I'm like, oh, I love both. But, really recognizing where our own beliefs and our fears stunt the amplification of our brand and our message. And it's so huge. And so I'm so glad we're going to tackle that at the event. So thank you. Jennifer, what was your spark?
Yes. Well, my first podcast was born out of my husband's near-death accident. And he survived. He was crushed by 12,000 pounds of wood. He survived, but his recovery was really long. And what we noticed was, when he told his story, it was really helpful to him. And it also encouraged other people to tell their story. And so I helped him go from an injured mill worker to an international speaker. And now he tells his story, and he's done a TED Talk and written a book about it. And so our first podcast was together, we co-hosted. It's called Inspiring Influencers Show. And we bring on thought leaders to talk about today's top mindset and marketing strategies. And then, of course, I also have the Women in Podcasting show, where I feature podcasting tips. And you can find that at womeninpodcasting.show.
Yeah, I love that each of us so far have had a very unique reason we started our podcast. And I know a lot of people, they have a story to tell. They have had a major life transformation or something profound happen to them. And I've coached so many people, you need to have a podcast about this, because this is how you're going to make an impact in the world. And you don't even know all the people you're going to touch. So Jennifer, thank you for bringing that spark to us. Tiphany, let's hear your spark.
Well, my spark started with a big, giant no, a sucker punch no that I got from my boss. And I had applied for a promotion that I was very, very qualified for, and I didn't get it. And the person that got it did not have the qualifications I had. And I was utterly shocked. I thought it was mine. Right. And so I asked for, a sit down with my boss. I'm like, I really need to workshop this with you. Like, what happened? Why wasn't it mine? Like, everybody thought this was mine. And the words she said to me were the biggest gift I've ever gotten in my life. She said, Tiphany, you're just too passionate. And I'm in public education. And I was like, you can be too passionate in education? Like, that's a thing. But that was a real gift, because I went home and sat and thought about it. And I thought, I can either dim my light under a basket and fit in, be a round peg in a square hole here, or I can find my own path where my passion is embraced and is, part of me. And I, like Michelle, had recently discovered podcasts and some really inspiring podcasts that were really helping my personal self-confidence and just getting my juices going and thinking about things. And I decided, okay, I'm going to do a podcast. I want to write a book. I want to speak on TEDx stages. Like, I think a podcast is a really good start for this. And lo and behold, it changed my life in ways I never could have imagined, to the point where I am not signing a new contract with my, for public education. I've been in there 20 years and I'm giving up that job because of my podcast. I've been able to build a business and connect with amazing people and fully embrace my passion and just really be who I am unapologetically. So
Love
it's
that.
exciting.
Oh, congratulations. And what a
Thank you.
powerful story. Wow.
Thank you.
Getting the chills.
It's that scared sighted moment, like I'm totally excited about it and, a little scared, but it's all good.
Yeah.
That's when you're doing it right.
That's when you're on the right path. So that's good. I don't think I've ever shared with the Amplify community why I started my podcast. And I will fully admit this is my second podcast. My first podcast, I did all the wrong things, which set me up for having an extraordinary success with the second podcast. But my first podcast, I started somewhere around 2009, 2010. And I started it because I was going through a phase after having massive success in my business for 9 years. All of a sudden, I felt radically invisible and I was dumbfounded. I was like, how am I like feeling so invisible right now? It must have been as I was emerging into 2010. And so I got very intentional. I didn't want to be on the road speaking anymore. And I was looking for a way to open up a stage, a platform to showcase other influential voices in my community and to activate what I call collaboration currency, otherwise known as that law of reciprocity. And I had zero idea how magnificently powerful having a podcast would be from that moment on. So learned all the lessons of what not to do in that first podcast, which was a video podcast before video podcasting was a thing. And, transition to the audio, which I absolutely love. And it brings me so many beautiful opportunities like this one. So Tiphany, let's pop back to you. I think some of you have already shared a little bit about what's happened by having a podcast. And just to really bring the power of podcasting to light, I think people get a little confused and maybe concerned about, if I was going to start a podcast, how do I grow it? How do I turn on the amplification of the podcast and make it work for me? So I would love us to do a round. We'll start with Tiphany on what's one thing that's helped turn it up, get the listeners, start attracting a following, maybe even attracting clients with it. So Tiphany, we'll start with you.
Oh my gosh, one thing?
Yeah,
okay.
Just one. Keep
just
the rest
one,
for when we get to the Podfest event.
Okay. So I'm going to start with mindset and move into the tip. So mindset of the downloads have almost nothing to do with the success of your podcast, right? It's all about the collaborations. Like, so many of my successes happened before I even had 1,000 downloads, right? Because it's the collaboration. And so my tip is going to be on the collaboration piece. It's, finding those people that truly inspire you and collaborate with them. So have them on your podcast as an interview, and then find other ways to collaborate with them. So maybe it's teaching a course with them. Maybe it's planning a retreat with them. Maybe it's going and doing IG Live, which you can go and you can schedule, you can, so that it sends the schedule out to all your followers, and then you get more Instagram followers and more people find out about your podcast. But it's the collaboration piece. So not just, okay, I'm interviewing this person and we're done. It's, this person is now part of my orbit, and organically we are doing things together. That would be my big tip.
I'm so glad you brought the mindset into it. It was one of the things I was hoping we might cover if we had time. So that's great. Let's go to Jennifer.
Yes. Well, my podcast is the perfect magnet for attracting my ideal audience. It's a way of introducing myself in a very helpful, non-evasive manner. And it's the perfect doorway into my universe, right? And it builds the credibility and with potential clients, as well as, it brings in thought leaders so people can see I have influencers in my corner. And I bring all that together and I bring people into my community through my email list. So my biggest tool is offering complimentary opt-ins on every episode and then driving people to my email list. And that helps me to build a deeper relationship with them and get to know them a little better because they're on my list. I can communicate with them regularly. And then I like to foster an environment of collaboration also, as Tiphany mentioned. That's the most enjoyable part for me, is collaborating with my peers and growing our businesses together. But really, it honestly all starts with my email list. If I didn't have that, I meet so many hundreds of people every month that I would lose track of people unless I had my email list.
Yeah. Well said. Well said. I love it. All right, Kimmie, what is one of the things you do to grow the listenership and audience for your show?
Okay, I'm gonna full disclosure. One of the ways that I've grown it is to not even focus on growing. And what I mean by that is I remember just being so intimidated. Tiphany, I'm glad you mentioned the numbers game because people be like, so how many downloads do you have? And I felt like people were qualifying you with how many downloads you had. But the truth of the matter is that I just kept recording. And I kept just being real on the mic. And I think because of that authenticity, people started connecting with me. And really, it organically grew. And I never really paid attention to the numbers because what I have done to grow my business is I offer these free breakthrough calls for my call to action. And I've been selling high ticket coaching from my podcast simply because of the consistency, the authenticity, and just connecting and being real, right? And so it's not like what a lot of people would think. I didn't do advertising. And I never could crack the code on the other strategies. So I just keep doing my thing, and because it's coming from a place of, my heart. So that has been the best for me. And of course, also the collaboration with other experts. I mean, the opportunities that I've had with some really big names and people coming on my podcast, it just blows me away. And to have just again, an authentic connection with them has also been really special.
I'm sensing a theme. I've heard collaboration coming up a lot. And I almost feel like it's the hidden gem that many of us, we don't maybe start there, but we uncover how powerful collaboration really is and what podcasting can do to open that door. So now, Michelle, I've set you up, so you don't have to talk about collaboration, but let's go to you.
My favorite thing usually to talk about, so I've had to dig deeper.
No. Oh, I got to cover something different.
It's great though. Collaboration, agreed, is the hidden gem. Oh my gosh. One thing, here's another type of a collaboration that's going to be my tip. I love bringing on people that I work with onto the podcast and just talk about their journey, because one, we get to really showcase all their magic stuff. And I started doing this in a behind the mic interview on our Amplify You podcast. And it was so cool to hear what was going through their head during their journey. And I think that really helps our listeners who are at home thinking about starting a podcast be like, yeah, that was me too, but she did it, I can do it too. And what was a really interesting byproduct of that is that they said really great things about me and our company, which was super nice. And that wasn't the intention of the show. But I think people can really resonate with the journey. And it's become one of my favorite types of episodes I do, is we call it Behind the Mic. And it's just all about the journey of podcasting. So showcasing your clients and whatever work that you do, and being able to give them a platform and give them a voice and a stage. And oftentimes we're giving them their first podcast interview, which is super cool. And it's really exciting for them to come up and shine, and they get that encouragement. And then they go out and do other podcast episodes and go on other shows. But showcasing your clients, and I think modeling how you coach people or how you work with people on your show, I think is a really powerful tip.
Thanks for sharing that. It's really, really such a great strategy. And there's such a win-win in it for everybody. I'll just drop one of mine that hasn't been covered because all the same, ditto, ditto, ditto. One of the things we do is we're very strategic about using social media extend the reach of the show. So we have a whole strategy of creating little mini clips and creating shareable content. And I found that it's not always even the first time we share it. It's the 17th time I share an episode. I'm very active on Twitter and we repurpose a lot of content on Twitter. Blow your mind how the 17th time or the 21st or the 30th or whatever, that podcast audio clip or the image goes through and people run with that one. So I find that a lot of people don't think to keep repurposing their show that way. And that's a big part of our reach. So just a little tidbit there. Michelle, let's wrangle you in next here. I want to shift the conversation and bring back this idea of mindset. You led with mindset and shared how your own mindset came up. And I don't know if there was a particular shift that you experienced or a belief you needed to embody, but you are one of the leaders in the podcasting space. What did you have to shift in your mindset and your belief system to really own this new level of authority?
Ooh, great question. And it's actually become the tagline at Amplify You is your uniqueness is your genius. And so, and then we go on to say that amplifying into the world is ours, but but your uniqueness is your genius. Like, and so I think for me, one of the ways I got out of that stagnation or the need to be perfect is if you're not embarrassed by your first few episodes, you waited too long to put them out there. And just getting going, the amount of personal growth that happens with exercising your voice, the amount of clarity you get. And even if you don't really want a podcast, but you're not super clear on your messaging, just start talking to the microphone because it's amazing after 10, 20, 30, 50 episodes, how powerful your voice becomes. And it just helps with your confidence, and it just trickles out into the rest of your world. So for me, it was just getting going and starting. That was really powerful. Just using that voice and knowing that no one else, no matter how many millions of podcasts are out there, no one's you, no one has your message and your unique twist on it.
Yeah, I love that you said that. I love that you bring your superpowers and your uniqueness into the conversation because that's really what we're amplifying, right? You know, it's funny. I was thinking back as you were saying, like, just get started. Like, if you go back and listen to my first 30 or 40 episodes, super rough, right? It's like the audio quality isn't quite there. I was nervous a lot of the times. Like, I was interviewing like these big name friends of mine, and I was like noticing how nervous I was, and I was like, okay, well, we're just going to do it. And it's not about perfection. It's about progress. So thank you for bringing that into our space. Let me open it up. Does anybody else have like a mindset shift that occurred for you to own the mic and the brand that was emerging for you around your podcast that you want to share?
Love to share.
Yeah, please.
Mindset is just, I love it. Obviously,
Yeah.
one of my podcasts is named Mastering the Podcaster Mindset. It's everything. Like anything that we are going to do in life, mindset is the number one biggest hurdle we all have to overcome, right? Perfectionism, imposter syndrome, just all of that stuff. So for me, the big mindset that I had to overcome is that imposter syndrome. Like, why would anybody want to hear from me? What do I have to say that, hasn't been said before? And it's really beautiful when you get to work through that and you get to, like Michelle said, you get to realize that I do have a unique perspective. I do have a unique voice. We just did an activity with our membership group of having everyone record an episode for just a 2 to 3 minute episode on chocolate chip cookies so that we could see how we all have a different take on exactly the same thing. And it's beautiful. What they have come up with in 2 to 3 minutes on the same topic is beautiful. And it's so true. There's no need to have that imposter syndrome because your audience wants your experience. They want to hear from you. They are going to be attracted to your story and what you have to share and the way you're sharing it. And that for me was the most powerful mindset work I went through. And it's affected every part of my life for sure.
Very well said. Thank you. Kimmy, how about you? Anything you want to share?
Yeah, I was laughing when you were talking about the quality of the recordings. I remember my first one sounded like I was in the bathroom because I forgot to switch the audio to the microphone. And I like all my first recordings were that. And I remember, I mean, here I am, a confidence therapist, right? I teach this stuff, yet I had such a hard time getting started because of what a lot of high achievers go through is that being perfect. Like I had to have everything perfect. And that's why I kept saying, yeah, I should, I should, I should. And I think one of the biggest things, I think, again, there's a theme here is like what Nike says, just do it. Like it doesn't have to be perfect. And one of the ways that I define confidence is simply experience, right? Like n- there's not one person out there that's not confident. There's an area that you might not be confident in. And if it's podcasting, it's because you haven't done it. So if you just start it, and that was the consistency for me, and just like you keep doing it, that's what builds your confidence. And then obviously, like things are tweaking along the way to make it better for yourself. But for me, that was that helped me get over that hump was the consistency over time and not getting into that perfectionistic mindset.
Well said. Jennifer, anything you want to add?
Yeah, same for me. Done is better than perfect. And there's no reason to feel guilty because other people's blueprint doesn't match your life or your podcast or your business. And you have to carve your own path and use the medium in a way that's going to work for you. So you need to be really clear on your objectives and what results you want. So for example, I studied podcasting for 10 years and I kept putting it on the back burner. It's funny how we do that to ourselves sometimes, right? And then, I finally took the leap and I found out that, my plans, I was going to do one a week. And that just didn't work for our lifestyle or our business. And so, we do them in a different way, but that's okay. It worked out and the results are better than I would have imagined anyways. So you have to take the leap. Podcasting is one of those things you have to do in order to learn it. So my coach in the beginning said, look, your 10th episode is not going to look like your first episode, right? You're going to get better and better, but you have to do it to actually learn it.
Thank you for sharing that. It's so powerful. As you were all talking, I was thinking back to my own journey with podcasting. And, I've always built my success from collaborations, like always. But I started podcasting as a solo podcaster. Like my second podcast, I'm like, I'm just going to do my own episodes and I'm just going to ride that wave. And all of a sudden I realized this is not that fun. Like I can only talk about so many things before I'm bored hearing myself. And one of the things that emerged for me is to recognize that, and I think a lot of people, they start their podcast and they're like, oh my God, I'm going to have like 1 billion people listening to my show, tomorrow, because Apple is going to pick up my show and run with it. And that's not really what happened for me. It does happen for a couple people randomly. What I found is it was a slow and steady growth. And the more consistent I showed up, the more the show took off and amplified the reach. And so today we're in, something like 45 countries, and we consistently stay at 1.5% of podcasts globally. But it wasn't that way when we started. And so my mindset is to recognize that when you commit to consistency, and consistent action breeds consistent growth. And just to recognize you're building something. We're getting ready to, we're like 4.5 years in, and we'll hit 5 years at the end of the year. Consistency, not perfection. It's all about the progress. So ladies, I would love if we could wrap up. This has been so rich, so exciting, so inspiring. I love getting to know you in a deeper way. I know our community here, the Amplify community, is eating this up. And we're all going to be on stage at Podfest Expo. We're joined by some other really extraordinary women. Jennifer, would you mind I know Alison Melody of Food Heals is going to be joining us, but maybe just drop a couple of the other ladies that'll be joining us on stage at Podfest.
Well, Martine Cadet is going to be doing a session on social media. You're going to be doing an amazing session, Melanie, about other people's podcasts, OPP.
Woohoo!
And then we have the 2 panels. We've got a mindset panel, so how to master your mindset. And then we've got how to monetize your podcast. And we've got amazing people on these panels that you're going to want to hear tips from every single one of them. And then we're going to be closing with a networking session. So we would love to meet you there. We want to meet you face to face. We're excited to get connected with all the women that are going to be attending Podfest.
Yeah, and we drop a little nugget for you. We've got some really awesome hot swag bags that are being created to gift you for joining us in our track at Women in Podcasting. So the Podcast Expo is May 26th through 29th. If you're catching this later, catch us on the next one. I know many of us will be at the next one as well, but you will absolutely want to make sure you're there for day one, the pre-day with the Women in Podcasting track in Orlando, podfestexpo.com. And if you need a little extra help getting there, I have a promo code Amplify you can use for 20% off. It's not an affiliate commission. It's just simply a gift to my Amplify community. So we'd love to see you there. Make sure if you're coming, you give us a little shout out either on the show notes here or in the Amplify Your Authority Facebook group and say, yeah, I'm going to see you there, Melanie. So I can make sure I hook you up and introduce you to some of these other awesome women. So let's do a closing round. Ladies, how can people connect with you further after today? Maybe a little free resource or next step. So Tiphany, let's start with you.
All right. I would love for people to come reach out. I'm most active on Instagram and Facebook. I'm Tiphany Kane, TiphanyKane. So come on over. I love when you DM me. I love chatting with people and getting to know people. And then, yeah, I'll send you over a little freebie. It's one of the fun little things that I enjoy giving out to people to get them excited about podcasting. So I'll send that over to you.
Yeah. So we will hook up those links on the show notes and everybody's Instagram handles and all that. So if you're scrambling for a pen or you're like quickly trying to find people on social, we'll make sure it's all linked up on the show notes. Yeah. Michelle, how about you?
Awesome. Well, as soon as we've talked about collaborations a lot, I just wanted to share this gift with you guys. I met a collaboration partner. I saw him comment on something on a Facebook group and I was like, oh, I like the way he said that. I invited him onto my podcast. He invited me on his podcast. And 2 years later, we've done a whole heck load of multiple six figures of business guys together. So the power of having someone on your podcast is incredible. So what we do is podcastsalesmachine.com together. And it's my gift to you is a free ticket to our 4-hour masterclass on how you can create a podcast sales machine with your podcasts.
Love it. Thank you. I love great stories of collaboration. It's so awesome. You never know who you're opening a door to when you invite somebody onto your podcast. How about you, Kimmy?
Yeah, well, I probably can best be reached on my website. It's kimmieseltzer.com, Kimmy, seltzer like the water.com. And actually all my social handles are now, at Kimmie Seltzer. So it's just easy. And what I'd like to gift everybody is, first impressions matter, whether we like it or not. And part of that first impression stage, whether you're on a podcast, in a video, or you're walking into a conference, or even trying to attract love, is how you show up with what you wear. So I want to offer people these free style guides that'll teach you about your body type and what clothes flatter your figure and what clothes to stay away from. And you can go to kimmieseltzer.com/style or just follow the link that Melanie's going to provide. And Melanie, thank you so much for having us. This has been awesome.
I love it. I love having these collaborative conversations. I literally feel like we've been hanging out around the lunch table or the cocktail hour, whichever one you prefer, having these insights shared, and it's been really juicy. Jennifer, let's wrap up with you.
Oh, wonderful. Yes. Thank you so much for having us, Melanie. And I want to give everybody my 11 ways to monetize your podcast document. And if you want to download that, it'll show you the framework I use, all the different ways that I monetize, and not only my podcast, but my message in general. You can download that and find out about my Women in Podcasting VIP Club, which is for podcasters and expert guests at womeninpodcasting.club.
Yay. I love it. Oh my gosh. As you're listening in, I hope that you leave this conversation not only feeling super inspired to start a podcast, or if you already have a podcast, to amplify the reach of your podcast. And I hope you can join us at Podfest Expo. It is going to be so awesome. And I got to tell you, I have known some of these women a long time. We've never met in person. So in real life is where the magic really takes off. So I hope you can create some of that in real life magic with us. And if you're not joining us, come join me in the Facebook group and we'll link it up in the show notes. It's a great place to take your expertise and turbocharge it so you're adding another 6 to 7 figures in your business each year by leveraging other people's podcasts. All right, we'll see you all soon. Bye for now. Thanks for tuning in today, Amplifier. Be sure to join us right now in the Amplify Your Authority community at authorityamplifiers.com, and I'll share my 7 proven tips to be a highly paid expert that stands out in a crowded market. Plus, we're going to keep this conversation going, and I want to hear from you how you're going to amplify your authority and make a greater impact. Before you go, please take a minute to give our show and our guests some love over on your favorite podcasting platform. Subscribe, rate, and review. Leave your full name, and I'll spotlight you and your authority on social media.